All right, guys, episode 3 of the Steampunk Philosopher with your host, Steampunk Nicky Pringles. Here we are again, Maskully Skullkin, best co-host in the universe, always here to support. Let's go. All right, so this episode, sorry, let me get that out of the way there. This episode is going to be about meditation. So I kind of wanted to sit down and talk about meditation from a more scientific angle. There's a logical side of meditation that people don't understand. And I know that that creates like a massive barrier to entry as far as trying these techniques out and practicing it and getting the benefits of it. And that includes even myself. I only started getting into meditation maybe 2 years ago when I had this profound, life-changing spiritual experience that I'll talk about at some point on this show. But basically, think mushroom strip and things happen. So I know that no one's like unfamiliar with these concepts at this point in time. Ayahuasca, mushrooms, and all that stuff are pretty common and mainstream these days. But basically, that's what more or less opened my eyes to a lot of this stuff and changed my entire worldview and perspective. But we'll get into that in more detail in the future. So with meditation in general, it never made sense to me why taking deep breaths and just imagining images in my head would have any type of impact whatsoever. It just seemed like hocus pocus and just weird and mystical and nonsensical and almost goofy, which I think honestly tracks for a lot of people, especially people that were like me, that were highly logic and reason based, very scientific in my approach to thinking and living in general, very skeptical, you know what I mean, nuanced in that way. And I honest to God think that that's really what keeps a lot of people away from it and out of it. And that's really hurting us as a society, because what we really need to do, like I was talking about on the last episode, is we need to connect with our higher selves, which is via our subconscious mind. So a couple of things before I touch on exactly how meditation works and why these techniques are designed the way they are in order for them to actually tap into that part of your brain. I want to talk about the conscious mind versus the subconscious mind. Again, it's not really a secret anymore that the subconscious mind is like 98% of your mind's capacity. And the conscious mind, what you actually think with on a day-to-day basis when you're analyzing things or problem solving, actually is only like maybe this much of the pie chart of really what's going on in the background of your subconscious. So all of the processing power and all of like genius and creativity and inspiration and all that stuff comes from your subconscious, again, which is attached to your higher self. So why am I explaining that to explain meditation? This is why. It's extremely important to understand that your mind has frequencies, literally frequencies and bandwidth. So in order of frequency, it goes gamma, beta, alpha, theta, delta. Delta is when you're sleeping, you're passed out, you're in dream state, right? Gamma is when you're super wide, like when you're in the zone. Think about any time when you're like playing basketball or whatever sport you play, or whatever just kind of gets you in that mode where you're making decisions at an extremely fast rate. Your intuition's at an all-time high. It's like you could do no wrong. Everything's just flowing. It's a flow state. That's what that is gamma. That's exactly what it is, not more or less. Beta is kind of your general walking around state when you're just having casual conversations, just going about your day. Alpha is where you're basically right before you're about to go into hypnosis, which is theta. Theta is where hypnosis is, right? So that's the frequency bandwidth that plugs into your subconscious mind. So the reason why it's so important to understand that is because you have to get down to theta in order to hit that brainwave, to plug into your subconscious, to stimulate that creativity and use your super conscious mind to connect to your higher self and get the messages and intuitions that I keep talking about are so important. So now how does that tie in with the techniques? The breathing techniques. When you take, and I learned all this from a lot of research and a lot of personal experience. I'll get into all that later. Just trust that I'm distilling the information accurately and giving you what you need to hear. So think of it like this. Every single time you take a deep breath in, right? All the way in down to your belly, and you have your belly pushed out. When you exhale from that belly, right? You have that belly pushed out. It presses on the vagus nerve, which basically releases the relaxation chemicals in your brain, which lowers your frequency bandwidth down to theta over time. So that's why the deep breaths are extremely important. And that's why you use that in tandem with clearing your mind. Because if you're using your conscious mind, then you're not tapping into your subconscious mind. So you want to get down to theta, then stop thinking with this mind so this mind can come online and start inspiring you and giving you the wisdom and all the secrets of the universe and the exciting things that I'm talking about on this show, which are absolutely real. And you can find this out for yourself. I just want to make something abundantly clear. throughout my time on the show, I'm not trying to convince people to believe me at all. All I'm trying to do is inspire people to try it for themselves so they'll go it and see for themselves and know it inside for themselves. That's where the real power comes from. That's why I don't like it when there's like gurus and they have followings and all this crap. Even if that were to happen to me, the entire time, all I would do is be like, no, you need to figure this out first. I'm just telling you how to find it for you. I don't want some like weird cult loyal following. I want everyone to be empowered so we can collectively raise the conscious state that we're in now so we can have a better experience on this planet instead of all the oppression and repression that I keep talking about on every episode, which comes from a lower conscious state. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to start a new conversation that's really not going on. And the reason why I'm choosing myself to do it is because basically I'm not the only voice that's saying these things, but because of the person that I am, I think that my voice will reach a subset of the population that's not going to be reached by like a sad guru or like a yogi or, you know what I mean? Like one of these like high level spiritual guys. They're not appealing to younger people or regular guys like myself. I'm a drinker. I'm a cigarette smoker. I talk shit. I like girls. I'm a normal guy. And as a normal, flawed, regular man, I'm telling you that you can do this at any point in your life and you all have access to it. And you're not going to evolve and level up to those stages that you see these ascended masters get to until you start. You can't it's not like that you clean yourself up and you make yourself perfect and then you gain access to these things. No, it comes to you when you're a sinner. It's right there in the Bible. That's what Jesus said. He said literally right in the Bible, he was the most perfect person that ever walked the face of the earth. And he goes, everything I could do, you could do, and even more than that. It's right there. All the real teachers, the real ones, the ones that are really trying to enlighten humanity are constantly telling you that you're empowered and you need to summon this for yourself. And I'm saying the same thing. So again, the reason why I'm talking about this is because there's so many logical thinkers. There's so many logical thinkers out there and there's so many science-based people that do not actually apply themselves to these techniques because they seem goofy. But if they understood it from a scientific perspective, they would be inclined. So again, theta, that taps into the subconscious. The deep breaths press on the vagus nerve. It initiates your relaxation response, brings your brainwave down until you get to theta. Clear the mind. If you're using the conscious, you can't tap into the subconscious. Clear the mind. Tap into the subconscious. Now you're in theta. Now you're in the subconscious mind. Visualization. Why is that important? That was one of the biggest ones for me to overcome. I had such a hard time with visualization in general. Not that I didn't have a good imagination. It just seemed childish and stupid and pointless. It made no sense to me at all. And what I ended up realizing over years and years of studying all this stuff, I took neuro-linguistic programming. I highly recommend you check that out if you're interested in learning some stuff about this that doesn't come from like a mystical place where it's science-based. So you'll be able to digest it easier if you were like me, basically. The reason why the visualization is important is because every single part of consciousness has its own language. So the conscious mind, how you and I talk right now, is with words and inflection and tones, you know what I mean, inferences, body language, things like that. The subconscious mind doesn't understand any of this at all. It's complete gibberish. So you can't tell yourself with words in your head to make your subconscious reprogram its belief systems or have the profound effects that meditation has. It has to be done in symbols. The subconscious mind only processes symbolism. That's why when you're visualizing, you're creating symbols in your mind. And when you go through like a guided meditation, it's like, oh, pretend you're a bird in the sky. And you're like, oh, this is weird. No, it's because that's the language your subconscious mind understands. So via these symbols and this visualization technique, once you do the breathing and get down to theta and clear your mind, now you're opening a dialogue with your subconscious to talk to you. And also so you can program it back. And this is the most important part about letting go of these limiting beliefs and, getting into a positive mind state and raising your vibration. A lot of raising your vibration is completely miscommunicated. People think that they have to raise their vibration. And really what you're doing is you're just uncluttering the nonsense so your natural high vibration will hit its peak on its own. You're just getting shit out of the way. It's like clearing train tracks. The train and the tracks are already there, but there's like logs and branches and shit on it. So you got to get that out of the way so the thing could run. That's all it is. I'm a drinker. I'm a smoker. I have a good time. I party. I'm a wild bastard. And still, I can get into this deep place of meditation. I can stand face to face with the universe and that which is and have full-on conversations with it. I've had absolutely lengthy, detailed conversations with God, basically, which is just the energy that literally makes up all of existence. So think about it like this. So All right, we'll get back to the meditation in a second. I just want to touch on this point real fast because when I say God, some people flinch, some people lean in and go yay and hooray and all that. That's just one of the words that I use. I call it that which is. So let me get this out of the way. What God is literally all of existence and all of reality is created from one substance, and that substance has infinite consciousness built into it. And we are all expressions of that one substance in different forms, in variation with infinite consciousness. Therefore, we are all God. We're made out of the same thing. We're all the same thing. It's just expressed differently. So what happens is in religion is that, so here's God, right? It just exists. And then we come with our little like primitive minds or whatever, and we create our language, which language is, it naturally divides because it's labeling, right? And we don't have to. So on the other side, we communicate telepathically. We don't have to use words and find the exact right word with the right definition. You could just look at somebody and just have a dialogue and understand and even exchange the emotions and the points of views without words at all. It's way more elegant, far more effective. But here, everything is slowed down and basically turned down to a lower level. So we have to use words. So here's the thing that exists, right? So just imagine we're all on this planet and everyone just realizes that God is what I'm saying, this infinite energy. But in their language, they called it Buddha. And in our language, we called it God. And in their language, they called it Allah. Everyone is literally labeling the same thing and then creating definitions around it with our flawed language and our flawed thought process and then arguing about it back and forth. It's complete nonsense. Everybody's right. There's only one thing. It doesn't matter what you call the thing. God, you can call it God. You can call it that which is. You can call it the universe. You know what I mean? You could call it the material of everything. It's still the same thing no matter which words I use to tack on top of the explanation of it. So that's really important to understand. So your subconscious mind taps into that power. That's how you communicate with your higher self, which is another form of God, which is also you as well. So that's why I'm talking about these things. Unless you become aware of this stuff and really understand that it's not bullshit. It's real. Unless you experience it for yourself and then you taste it, you're never going to truly know it. And until we all truly know it at an individual scale, which ends up being the collective scale, we're not going to be able to change the dominant psychology, which is programming this reality that we're in now with so much pain and suffering and oppression and repression, all the things that I talk about. It's time for all this bullshit to die. These governments and these powerful people and these politicians, they all have their agendas in the background and they're all lying and cheating and stealing. And then the media is controlling all of us. And we're on the back foot reacting to whatever the 5 conversations the media talks about is. So then we start dividing even more with our terrible power of language that we don't have really dialed in yet. And then we're just focused, just hypnotized by this nonsense. Now we're fighting and arguing, and then negativity breeds negativity, creates a feedback loop, and then self-creates and self-manifests itself over and over and over again, and we're in this loop. That's why I created this show. I'm going to say it every episode. It's so we can have a different conversation, start a new conversation pool, which is going to change the psychology, the collective mindset. The more people that get involved in this discussion and understand what I'm saying and start applying these methods to their life, the more we could literally change the entire fabric of reality and how everything is done. There does not have to be all this suffering and all this pain. We don't have to be slaves. We don't have to be peons. And the idea that there's nothing we could do about it because these entities are so steeped and they're so powerful and they're so established is not true. It isn't true. It's not true. We just have to have these conversations and start understanding. And again, when we become aware, when we become enlightened, it's going to change the collective mindset from fear-based beliefs, which embody like I said, lack and, like hatred and anger and fear attacks. That's what it does. Fear attacks. Love actually heals and expands, right? So fear contracts, love expands. And if we could just make that switch in our minds and realize that there is an actual, you can call it God, whatever you want to call it, and we're all made out of the same thing, and there's no such thing as death. There's only a succession of states, and we're just in this avatar body having a short-term experience, and there are fundamental laws of reality operating underneath that are controlled by our psychology, and if we upgrade our psychology, we upgrade our experience, and it doesn't have to take the powerful people to do it. The power is in the more minds put out this new frequency and raise this level, the more it gets sucked into it like a whirlpool. These people they're going to be on the back foot when instead of talking about the bullshit they put on the news in our homes every day and letting that run in the background at all times, we're watching things like this, having these types. It doesn't have to be here with me. I just hope that I'm one conduit. Like I said, I'm a regular guy, so I feel like I'll collect like the lower 20s to up to a certain age or whatever of people that are like me, that aren't like, I'm not wearing white robes and levitating and shit. I'm having fucking whiskey every night. You know what I mean? And still worshiping God and still getting benefit and value of it and still growing and still changing. I'm still accepted by that which is. God came for the sinners. We're all sinners, and that's not a bad thing. That does not make us imperfect, by the way. Nothing is imperfect. Everything is as it should be at all times, always, and it's always going to be. So we got to stop this self-loathing and this judgment and this criticism and this inauthenticity, and it has to stop. So one of the things, one of the most powerful tools, if not the most powerful tool, is going to be meditation. Because in meditating, you break that thought process and that loop and that program that's been running all the time, at least for that period of time where you're doing it, and you give yourself a chance to reconnect with your higher self, which is going to attach to your intuition, which is going to feed you new wisdom, which is going to open your eyes, which is going to make you enlightened, which is going to change the collective psychology and take the power out of these cocksuckers' hands once and for all. This does not have to be this way. We just need to get on board with this. That's why I'm screaming into this microphone like a lunatic and wearing a top hat and shit. But I love you guys. I love everybody very much. I hope that we can all come on this journey together. This isn't ending. I know my cadence is making it sound like it's about to end, but I just wanted to wrap that point up and really hammer home why I'm sitting here doing this. Because it's true. That's why. So I always explain it to my friends because they always talk about, like, everyone knows that I had this crazy, experience or whatever. Not whatever. It was absolutely real. It was the realest thing I've ever experienced in my entire life, and it can be for you as well. But when I explain it to people, one of the things that it told me when I got there, and I'll explain this in more detail at some point, like I keep saying, was that this is everybody's birthright. We're all made out of the same thing. I said, how come I was talking to basically like God. I was like, how come I don't feel your presence all the time? How come sometimes you're with me and sometimes you're not? And it literally said to me, you come and go, I'm always here. And it was talking about how I get in my own head and I sever the connection from the infinite pool of intelligence and love that exists right behind the curtain of all this fake reality that we're basically in. And it was basically telling me, like, clear your mind and reconnect, and I'm always here. You're just not listening. It said too much you. Those were the exact words. It went too much you. And when I asked what that meant, it was like, basically shut your mind off and listen to me. You're not listening, you're thinking. If you're thinking all the time, you can't be listening. And listening isn't the ears, it's this place inside, this antenna inside. And that's why I keep hammering home that our minds are frequencies, gamma, beta, alpha, theta, delta. They have bandwidth. When you walk into a nightclub and there's that music playing, even if you hate that shit, all of a sudden your heart rate starts to rise and you start sweating a little bit and your pulse increases because your mind is connecting to that frequency, and that's the gamma state. So your body is physiologically responding to a radio wave in the sky. That's what it is. Are you starting to get the picture? Everything is a radio wave. It's all frequencies. We're just on a channel that we're tuned into. And by meditating and clearing your mind and understanding that these things are real, it changes your mindset. It changes your belief system. Then these things start to open up to you. And when they open up to you and you accept them, guess what happens? You teach your kids. You lead by example. You show your friends and family. Your life changes. Everything becomes an external proof of that internal state, and people see that. And then the more people take that lane, the more people are going to take it. I call it the open freeway lane. That's what I'm trying to do here. Basically, I'm trying to lead by example and show people, not just talk about it, but demonstrate it. And I'll tell you how I'm trying to do that in my life at this point in time. But basically, I always think about it like, imagine you're on the freeway and there's 4 lanes of traffic, right? And then there's this one wide open lane that nobody's in. So everyone's just gridlocked in traffic and nobody's in that lane. And there's no real reason that no one's in it. People just think that they can't because there's nobody there. What happens when one guy pulls out and takes that lane? 70 people do it immediately after. So I understand psychology. I get this. If I could just crack that dam a little bit and be the car that takes that lane, for the people that aren't already listening to this or getting this message from another source, if I could be that conduit for a different demographic, we get to add all of our collective mind power to that infinite consciousness and boost the greater frequency. And then the politicians and the evil ones and the powerful ones that I keep yelling about, they lose ground. They lose ground. Everything that is created is a manifestation of psychology. It's all a mental state. There is no reason on earth that we should suffer this way, that there's no lack. There's enough for everybody in this world. It's just how we choose to organize and reorganize it and distribute it. And we're at fault because we let them do it and say that there's no way to fix it. That's bullshit. This is how you fix it. This is how you fix it, by having these conversations, by becoming awake and aware, teaching your kids, teaching the people around you. Eventually what will happen is people will naturally come to the conclusion that God is real and that love is benevolence and that benevolence is the highest frequency state. And it's not only the best way to approach our lives, it's also the most logical and rational way to exist as well. And once that becomes as common as 2 plus 2 is 4, then everything will shift because they won't be able to keep us manipulated and arguing and fighting and watching the TV and dividing and exercising that negative psychology, which is programmed this reality, because we're all going to go, oh, I see the trick. That doesn't work anymore. I'm not going to react to that anymore. And let me tell you another secret about markets, which people think is only a carnal thing here. That's also a spiritual force as well. The market only produces what we consume and pay attention to. So if we stop consuming and paying attention to that through enlightenment, through greater wisdom, which will naturally steer us away from these things, the market will start producing what we are paying attention to and what we do actually consume, which is going to be these higher qualities. So higher vibrational products, services, ways of being, and ways of thinking will come into the market naturally in response to the fact that we're paying attention to that and no longer paying attention to this. It's like taking oxygen away from fire. This is not fake. What I'm saying is real. If we can get on board with this and we can all come to the table and start doing this, it's going to change the world. That's what's going to happen. That's why I'm sitting here. This is why we're doing this. And I'm going to keep doing this every single day, putting this out there until either people either get shot or it comes around or it's gotten out of me enough to where my heart is satisfied with what I've said. That's the only reason why I'm here doing this. I just want you all to know that. So please understand that your subconscious mind is the greater power that attaches to your higher self, which is behind the veil of reality, which you can tap into by going into a theta state, which is the frequency that connects to the subconscious via clearing your mind. So when you're not thinking, you're listening, and then you will come back online. And when this happens, there will be evidence. Something is going to happen in your life. It's going to show itself to you. I can't tell you how because it's different. It's always tailor-made to the individual person. And the reason for that is so you can't ignore it, by the way. Something will happen in your life, and then all of a sudden there's going to be this explosion of just synchronicities. Things are going to start to coincide, and then you're going to start understanding that there's more languages than English. Like I talked about symbols. Things that you thought were coincidence are really communications from the other side, which you're going to understand how to start listening to these languages, and then you're going to see things in physical reality synchronize, and then it's going to touch that intuition inside of you. It's like a chord that you flick, like a tuning fork, ding, and you're going to know in your subconscious, that's the thing I need to walk towards. That's the thing I need to pay attention to. I shouldn't eat that. Put that down. Make a left here. Maybe don't go to work this way today. Maybe that saved you from an accident. Maybe that fucking Oreo cookie was poison. Don't question it. Then you start to learn how to follow it because your conscious mind can never process what your higher mind can. Imagine it like a video game. This is perfect too. Imagine it like a video game. So you are the one that's playing the game and you have your little character on the screen, but you have a top-down view of the entire world that the character is in, and you can see how every road and every avenue attaches, and you have the controller, right? That's your higher mind. But then now you have the character, which is where our consciousness is right now, that's forgetting that the higher mind and the rest of us exist, so it's not listening, so it's trying to make decisions, but it's in the game on a ground level. It can't even see around the next corner. So it just keeps getting sunk into potholes and tripping and bumping into shit and making mistakes. And the whole time your higher self is behind you in your subconscious going, I told you to turn left, but you can't hear because you forgot. That's why. That's why this is so important. So understand that meditation is not this weird, none of this is like this weird, crazy, hocus pocus and ayahuasca, you're a hippie and all that crap. That's not what it is. This stuff is real. It's part of what you are. It's part of the makeup of reality and who you are. And we just need to reconnect with it. Stop defining that way. It's logical. It's reasonable. And I encourage you also to look into, if you're a science person like I was, nanotechnology, quantum mechanics. That's going to help you a lot. Also, I want to make this last point as well. Me and my girl were talking about this earlier today. I was making the point because, again, I was a seeker, so I read a lot of books, and I know a lot about a lot of different people. Every single great thinker and scientist, artist, breakthrough, if you will, almost all of them credit either a near-death experience where they came out of their body and saw the other side and got inspired by the infiniteness of reality, or they took psilocybin or mescaline, or they had some kind of profound thing that happened to them. Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, Aldous Huxley, the list goes on. And Da Vinci, it just goes on. Carl Jung had an NDE. He had a near-death experience. That's the reason why he was the greatest psychologist that ever lived. And again, even like Nikola Tesla, like I said before, they all credit these forces and these supernatural, what we call supernatural, which is really just nature, honestly, with all of their breakthroughs and all their brilliance. And we sit here and we utilize it. I have lights right now, you know what I mean? Like we use the principles of relativity and all that stuff, and no one ever listens to them when they go, yeah, I got that from the other side. That's where it came from. Listen to the Beatles before LSD and then afterwards. I'm going to leave it there for now. So try these techniques out. Understand that meditation is not some weird, goofy practice that you should be like insecure about. If it helps you not to tell people around you because people can't understand it, then do so. But understand it from a logical, scientific point of view. Subconscious mind, frequencies in your head. Gamma, beta, alpha, theta, delta. Theta is where the subconscious exists. Clearing your mind makes it so you can hear the subconscious because you're not thinking now, you're listening, okay? Take the deep breaths, visualize with the symbols. The symbols will communicate to your subconscious. You will open up a dialogue, and then you can start walking down the path of not only strengthening the tuning fork. That's what your mind's eye is. That third eye in there is like an antenna. So that gets stronger and picks up better and better frequencies and puts out better and better frequencies. That's what raising your vibrational state does by clearing these tracks and reconnecting to the power that's already inside of you that they don't want us to connect to, that they fucking know about, by the way. I'm convinced that they do. I'm convinced because they're leveraging all these principles just in a dark way. So anyway, so that's the main thing of it. Get back to meditating. Understand that it's not illogical and it's not stupid and goofy, and it absolutely does work. And you will have experiences to prove to you personally, so you're not going to have any doubts either. It's extremely important. That's episode 3 of the Steampunk Philosopher. I'm going to come back and tell a couple of stories about my personal life because while I'm explaining these things, I don't have a PhD. I'm not Dr. Pringles. I don't have any like college education or anything like that. So people might be inclined to go, oh, why does this guy think he knows all this stuff? It's completely and utterly from personal experience, empirical data, and because I've sought it my entire life. So just because Harvard says that I didn't do enough studying is not true at all. I've walked the walk, I've talked the talk, and I've read the books. I know it all. I know everything I need to know to tell you about this, and I know enough to tell you that you could find it for yourself. So the last analogy I want to leave you with, which will help make sense as to why I talk this way, is, again, like, I don't want you to I'm not trying to convince you to believe that I'm right. I'm trying to inspire you to go and have these experiences so you know for yourself that it is true. Not me. Not that I'm right, that it is true. So I always explain it like when I had my trip, whatever, and it opened up to me and it showed me all these things. It's like, imagine if you didn't know that Brazil existed, right? And I went to Brazil. I go to Brazil and I call you from a cell phone in Brazil and you've never even heard of Brazil. You didn't even know if Brazil was a place. And I call you and I'm like, dude, Brazil's totally real. And I start explaining it to you. I'm like, there's beautiful trees. There's like toucans and shit. There's beautiful lakes. Like, you know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. The ecosystem. Oh, it smells this way and the weather. And I'm just explaining it to you. I'm not trying to convince you to believe me that Brazil is real. I'm trying to inspire you to buy a ticket to go see Brazil for yourself. Thank you.